Hello and welcome to another one in the series of the Ellis Clark how-to videos. Today we've got something a little bit different. I'm going to take you through how to take the Black 5 off its plinth. Then we're going to run through how to take the boiler off if you need to fit a DCC chip. And last of all, I'm going to go through how to fasten the tender connection and also the electrical connection. Then once that's done, we're going to have my colleague Dave coming in and he's going to do some DCC tips. So first of all, we've got the model out of the box, and as you can see, she's fastened to a transit plinth. Now, I know some of you probably think these are a bit of a pain. Other manufacturers use them as well. The real reason that we use them in the manufacturing industry is the models weigh so much. Coming from the other side of the world on air freight or by boat, they do get moved about a heck of a lot, and it's to stop your model from getting damaged in transit. It means it can't move around in the box even within the foam. What I would say is once she's off the plinth and she's on your layout, you probably don't need to put her back, even if you're going down to a club or an exhibition layout. If you buy one of our Ellis Clark Trains transit boxes, that would suffice more than adequately for it. So first of all, tools we're going to use today. Initially, we're going to use the large Allen key that comes with your Black 5 and a loco cradle. If you don't have a loco cradle, you could use a tea towel, and basically it's just to protect your model and stop it rolling. So first of all, I'm just going to pick her up, turn her over. I am going to use a tea towel deliberately because I want it to be as easy as possible for everybody that maybe hasn't got all them tools. So it's going to, underneath we've got 4 Allen key bolts, and we'll do the loco first because that's the heaviest item. Just literally undo them, and I'll go and move to the rear one for the cab area and just undo that one partially, and then we'll get that one completely out. There she goes. If you can then just grasp the loco a little bit with one hand and just undo the Allen key with the other. It is a little bit fiddly, but nothing too desperate. There we go, that's spun off now. Remove that, and what I'm going to do is, one hand I'm just going to hold the cylinders on the loco, and the other hand I'm just going to turn her over. Right, that's the locomotive off. You've got some plastic tubes, remove those, and as you can see, this model's come straight out of the box, straight from the factory. She's ready to go. I'm just going to pop her over here out of the way for a second whilst we take the tender off. We'll remove the detail pack bag, pop that to one side. Same again, turn her over, and as you can see there, we've got 2 Allen key bolts. Just crack them off, get them both cracked off. There we go, that's those off. We'll turn the tender the correct way up. Same again, a little bit of plastic just falls out, which is a bit of a tube. We'll remove them out of the way. And that is removing your Black 5 from a plinth. The next bit we're going to go on to is, I want to fit a DCC chip that's not sound. Obviously we do a sound fitted model with speakers. An analog fitted Black 5 is fitted with an L-type decoder socket, as you'll see in a moment. She doesn't come with speakers, but if you're wanting a DCC fitted non-sound model, you're going to have to fit a chip to her. So how do we do that? Well, on this model we don't remove the chassis from the locomotive, we remove the boiler from the locomotive, and the best way to do that is we're using the following tools: posi drive screwdriver, a pair of tweezers, a pair of small needle nose pliers. You will need a little bit of glue because we have to take the whistle off, but it's easy enough to do. And same again, we'll use a cradle. If you haven't got a cradle, you could use your tea towel. Just remove the tender out of the way because we're not going to need the tender for this little part. So the first things that we do, I have forgotten one thing, you also need a blade screwdriver as well. If we look underneath on the model, I'll point with the screwdriver, there are 2 screws here, there's 2 there, and 2 right at the very back that are just in front of the ash pan. There's actually 4 but it's the very rear two, and they're what we're going to remove. So first of all, the easiest way I found it to be done is to use your blade screwdriver and go into the bogie, and you'll see that there's a blade chromed screw that holds the bogie on. Turn it about 8 times, 9 times. You don't need to take the bogie off completely. It just helps you removing this little section in a moment. So all we then do is go onto the posi drive, remove the 2 front screws, like so. Then using as tweezers, we go in, pick the screws up, remove the screws. Next thing we do is lift it up using us needle nose pliers, lift the bogie up at the same time and remove that. Now, all that item is for, it's the transit lug for your bolts. It doesn't actually serve any purpose on the Black 5 bar, it's just a blanking plate, but it does need to come off. Now in there you'll notice there is 1 posi drive screw. If you undo that posi drive screw, that's that one. The next one is the first pair of screws just in front of the slide bars. Then we're right to the back of the ash pan, or the front of the ash pan I should say, and remove 2 screws there, and there's there. Don't worry about getting the screws out. If you now hold the boiler at the same time, move the cradle out of the way, turn her over, the screws will fall out. Give it a little tap and you can see now we've got 3. One's actually stayed in, but it's not a problem, it'll fall out. There you go. So you've got 4 large screws and 1 small screw. The next job is using your tweezers, grab hold of the back support bracket on the whistle and just lift it up, and with your fingers pull her away. Now the whistle is a casting, so it won't break, it's not plastic, it's just because it's fastened into the cab and we're going to remove that section. Now turning her round, grasp hold with your thumb and forefinger the front of the boiler and lift up slightly. You'll hear a little click, and then pull it forward slightly, up, and then if you use, if required, your tweezers to move it out, and there you go. That's your boiler off. Now you may get the odd pipe here, these 2 copper pipes may come off like that one, which is why you need a little bit of super glue, but they'll go on very, very easily. This is something you probably only do once, maybe twice in your whole model's life. So should we want to put a chip in there now, all we need to do on the L socket, use your tweezers to, or your flat blade screwdriver, just to remove the socket, which is there. Then all you'd simply do is just put your chip straight in, as I'm going to do now with this L socket, close it back up, pop it back on, that's your chip in. If you were wiring your own speakers in, you would then go into the other side here, which I'll show you again now. We'll take it back off. So if you were wanting to put your own speakers in, if we now remove that and I'll turn it over, you can see there you've got SPK 2 and speaker 1s. Speaker 1s and speaker 2s on this end here, so you can wire straight onto those up into here for your own speakers. And back in again, she just clips back in. If that was your chip, you just push it straight in. Remember, they'll only go one way. You've got a taller bank and a shorter bank. They only go one way. Into there, clip them back in. That's everything done on that. Putting it back together then is reverse order. Main thing I must stress is there is a billet of weight here that will come out. Just make sure it's located when you do it. Don't do that because it will slide out. And also the wiring loom here with the cable tie, make sure it goes through the gap here. Don't get any wires on this area or you'll nip them as you're tightening her back down in a moment. So back in reverse order. I find if you thread those wires back into there a little bit, just move them down out of the way, which are for the front light, and then I'm just threading them back through the gap in the firebox, making sure all your wires are out of the way as you're doing it. Put her down at an angle and then drop the front end down. If you look there, there is a slight lip here and there's a little bead around the front of the cab, sits in under there, drops down, and you'll feel it dropping in. There you go. You probably saw it again. I'll lift it back up for you again. So down again, and it clicked in. If you then grasp it with your left hand, turn her over completely, hold her in your hand, one of the larger screws, if you just put one of the larger screws back into its hole, like so, posi drive, tighten it back up. Now you're okay for a second or two to just, right, have a quick look. Yeah, everything's right, everything's back on. Okay, so we'll now carry on. The boiler would hold on with one screw, but we have actually 5 that hold it on. If you drop one, give it a bit of a wiggle, everything will just drop out. So that one back in, them in, and then we've got the smaller one, which goes at the front. Tighten him up, and then last one is, we're back on his cradle again, like so. Lift the front bogie up slightly so it's at a bit of an angle, and then this area here, there's like a step, sits underneath the cylinders, so it goes in at like a 45-degree angle and drops in like so and comes back on itself. Then it's just a matter of the front 2 screws in, and then back to a blade screwdriver, tighten your front bogie up. There we go. Turn her over. Tiny little bit of super glue just on the end here, and I am talking a very tiny amount. You'll see the hole in the front of the cab where it fits into there, and then you'll feel it a pop. It pops in. That's it. That's that relocated. These here, should they come off, don't panic. They just literally fit in like so. This pipe work will fit in behind the lubricators like that. As I've said many times, it's always a little bit harder doing it backwards to how you'd probably do it if you were sat on your workbench. So she fits in there. There is a slight hole in the boiler cladding for this end. Just capillary a little bit out on my pad. Little cocktail stick. Tiny little bit of glue there. That's it. That's that done. Tiny little bit just there, and we are talking a small amount. That's it. That's your model now, technically fitted for DCC. The last things I want to come over with you is, we'll go back to our tea towel because it might be a little bit easier in this instance. On the tender, basically, if you look here, in between the 2 wires, there's a little posi drive screw. If you just undo that back out and then get your locomotive, you'll see you've got your drawbar there. All you do is insert it into that area there that I'm pointing through with the screwdriver, and tighten the screw up and she'll catch it. There you go. That's it now inserted. As you can now see, we've got the tender connection. Now the locomotive will run for testing and will do everything that you need it to do without the tender being on. But the tender does give you an extra set of pickups, and obviously you've got your rear light on the tender as well. If you look at the multi-pin connector, it's an oblong connector, but it's got more of the connector pins towards the bottom than it has to the top, so they're not central. So there is only one way it will go. And then if we look at the female side, it's exactly the same, and they are inserted in the correct way. All you need to do is just get yourself a small set of tweezers, line them up, push them in, and there we go. That's them inserted in. And once again, these are probably one of these you'll do once and probably not take them off again. And that is everything that I wanted to go through with you on your Black 5. Right, okay. We're now going to move on to the next phase, which is the DCC side. And I'm going to get my colleague Dave in. Now, some of you may have remembered him before, but he's got a bit camera shy. Dave, are you all right coming in?
I am. I know where the lenses, mate.
Yeah,
I know where the lenses.
So I'm going to hand you over to my good friend Dave, leave you in his capable hands, and I'll let you talk DCC.
I'll let you go and get a brew.
See you later, mate.
Right, so a few of you have seen the basic instructions that come with the Black 5s as the DCC. This really is just the start of what you can do with this locomotive, really. You can get some really good technical stuff in there to make it perform exactly as you want. There's a couple of different options there too. Best way to find that, obviously watching a video to see what I'm going to tell you, but flip that over in your Black 5, you'll see there's a QR code there, there's also a web address, so head on to the website, you'll get a full, I think it's about 10-page manual on exactly what you can do with the DCC functions on the Black 5. Just wanted to tag on to Neil's video just to show you a couple of my favourites, a couple of the options you can do as well. So let's get it fired up. So we use an NCE power cab, that's what we use as standard. Pretty much every controller on the market will be able to do what I do today. Just refer to your controller's instructions on how to change CVs, configuration variables. But if you're not too sure, have a chat with the manufacturer of your controller, or if you want to give us a call or drop us an email, that's fine as well. So as standard, your loco will come with the sound already playing. All the functions will fully work, but there's a couple of options that you can have on there too. First one I want to cover is the volume on the Black 5. Now, I know some of you have larger layouts in clubs and garden layouts as well, want a little bit more noise coming from the Black 5. You can change that. We've had a look at it. You can change that over. The volume is set somewhere between 0, which is your quietest, and 255, which is your loudest. As a default, on the Black 5 as it comes, that's set to a volume of 80. So, a little bit of wiggle room we can have there. We've tried them up to about 150, 170 or so and found that it works absolutely fine, but the volume is quite a bit louder. Anything above that, at your recommendation, really. Do try it in increments. If you hear the speaker starting to crackle and distort, please don't set them any higher than that, because then the speaker is overloading and it can't play. But do feel free to have a little bit of an experiment there too. So you can do this either on your programming track or on your main track as well. I'll just move the tender out of the way so I've got a little bit of room. You don't need the tender hooked up to be able to do anything on the change of the functions. So I'll go over onto our programming on main. I'll make sure these go up as notes on the screen as well. So what you'll need to do is select loco number 3. If you are programming on your main track, as I'm sure many of you know, just make sure you've got no other locos on there, otherwise they're all going to be programmed as well, and we don't want to faff around changing 10 locos when we can just change 1. So select number 3, select the CV, and the CV number we're going to want to put in is 266, so that's the one that controls the full volume, all the settings on the Black 5. So put 266, press enter, and then we get our value. So this is set to 80, so let's crank it up a little bit. Let's head up to about 160. You'll probably hear the change if I go quiet. So this is the Black 5 on idle now. This is doubling the volume. Did you hear that jump then? Not quite so noticeable at the lower volume, but when we get her on the rollers a little later on and we really give her a good bit of noise, you'll notice then that that's really had a change. Working through some of the whistles on there too. You can't quite hear it on the camera, but believe you me, try it when you're on your layout, and it does have that little bit of an element of more volume there too. Speaking about the whistles, you'll notice they change at speed as well. That's something we've put into the chip. So when it's a static locomotive like it is now, it'll just be like the locos in a platform, acknowledging the guard, acknowledging the driver, rather than a full sort of long chime whistle or full hooter, which you wouldn't get on the platform. So you've got a single and a double on your options there too. I'm just going to take her off for 1 second. You'll also see that it's got a full stay alive in there too. So you can hear that it's still cracking on and going for us. And I'm just going to put her up on the rolling road. So we've got her up on the rollers, and let's just see how those whistles change. So if we use the F3 function, which is the single whistle, I'll show you the differences. So whilst we're not moving, We've got a simple acknowledgement whistle. Let's give her a better welly. This is also now with that increased volume as well, so you can really hear that Stania bark there. Quite a fan, if I say so myself. So if we go for F3 again, now she's rolling. Can you see that that's got a little bit longer, that whistle, just a longer acknowledgement? Let's really open her up. And give her a few more whistles as we go. So could you hear there then how it's got that longer whistle for when you're further along the line, which would be more accurate because you would be acknowledging things like crossings, signal boxes, that sort of thing. We'll bring it down to a stop. One other quick thing I want to show you is function number 5, which is the cut-off. So this is a representation of how much the reverser and the regulator is working on the locomotive, giving a sharper, crisper exhaust beat. So I'll switch over for them. We'll get her going again. So she's off again. And if I press F5, you'll hear the distinct change in the exhaust beat. Can you hear the changes between when I'm pressing F5 on the controller? So that again just replicates the different sounds you'd hear when you were driving the real locomotive there as well. Don't forget, I'm sure most of you already know, you have got the active brake in there too. So when you press F2, it'll really slam on the brakes as well. One other thing I want to cover is the maintain steam feature. This is right down the sheet on F22. This is one of the first locos to have that feature actually. It's a bit of a game. It makes your Black 5 really fun to drive. All it is if you set F22 on your controller, it means that you've got to maintain the steam pressure on your locomotive. Now, you don't start after digging out all your coal and things like that. It's still all on your controller. But every now and then, you've got to activate the shoveling to shovel more coal into the firebox and the injectors too. If you don't do that, your Black 5 will come to a stop, just like a real-life locomotive would if you don't maintain the fire and the water. So have a go at it. If you really want to have a go at driving a Black 5 and getting as close to the real one as you can, put that maintain steam pressure on and just make sure you can keep the balance of the loco running there too. One last thing I want to refer to is there's a couple of secret little Easter eggs we've put in the Black 5. They are in that full instruction manual. So again, have a glance at the QR code. But if you're getting one of the locomotives we're doing, such as Sherwood Forester or Eric Tracy, they are locomotives as they're preserved, as is number 5337 that Neil had on his bench before. Some of those locomotives have had whistles changed in preservation. Some of them have had the air brakes added too, to make them available to go out onto the main line. If you change the values on your controller again, like we did with our volume, if you remember we changed over to CVs, on this one, we're going to be going to CV 843. So we do exactly the same. If we've no locos on our track, we can program it on the main track. I do always recommend, if you can, on doing it on a separate programming track, but because all you can see today is a pretty small stretch of track, we're okay to go on this. So program on main, make sure we pick loco 003, which is what we've got in front of us. And we're going to be looking at changing the CV, and we're going to be looking at changing CV number 843. Again, this should be possible on all types of controller. We use the power cab, but anything else may vary. So the values, I will need a little bit of paper for this one, I'm afraid, guys, just to remind myself I've not got that good a memory. So there's a few options you can have. The default for 843 is set to 108. Now that's the loco exactly as we've got it here. That's with the standard Stania hooter and with the vacuum brakes that the locomotives had for most of their lives. If you want to change that over a little bit, you can change it so it's got a chime whistle, which has been fitted to some of the locos in preservation, and you can put the air brakes on there too. There's a couple of different options if you want to change that over. So if you're going for that CV 843, there's a couple of different values that you want. So if we put in 108, that would leave it exactly as it is. That's your default value. If we put in 99, that will give you a chime whistle, but it'll keep the brakes the same. If you put in 76, it'll give you the air brakes and the sound of all the pumping equipment, etc., but it'll keep the whistle the same. If you want both, you want CV67, so that gives you the chime whistle and it gives you the air brakes. So let's go for that. Let's put the whole lot in there, shall we? So we're changing that CV843, we're putting 67 and enter. Might not notice any differences right away. What's happened? Can't hear anything different. But when we press our whistles, we've now got the chime whistle that some of the locos had in preservation. Something a little different. Some people like it, some people don't. Can you hear the Westinghouse brake pump there as well? That'll come in intermittently, like it does in the real life locos. That just comes on as standard as well. That works in the background as it does on the real locos. So let's open her up a little bit. And again, she's away. And the whistles for the chime work in exactly the same way as they do on the hooter. So the faster you go, the longer the whistles will get. So let's open her up a bit. And there you go. So you've got a few different options there to really customize your Black 5. But what if it goes wrong? What if you press a CV and you press the wrong one and you think, oh dear, I've got to sort this out? Really easy fix to do. Some of you may already be familiar with it. We grab our controller again. Make sure there's no other locos on the track if you're programming on your main track. If you're programming on a separate programming track, you're A-OK. Really easy one to remember this, and it'll probably work on quite a lot of your other locos as well. So grab a pen and paper for this moment. We're going back to our programming track. We're making sure we've got loco number 3 selected, which is the one we want to do. We want to change CV, and we want to put 8. And then when it says enter value, we want to put 8 again. And that will take the loco right back to your original factory settings. So everything we've just done, the volume increase, the whistle change, the air brakes, we should now be back to where we were and where we started from. So if anything ever goes wrong, or you set a value and you think, I just need to get it back to the start and start again, you can put that in. Some people think it might wipe the sounds from the decoder. Some people think it might lose loads of things. It doesn't. It just takes it back until the first time you open it and put it on your track. So if you're not too sure or you're not feeling too confident, give it a quick CV828 on your controller. Start from the factory settings. You'll have it right back with its Stania hooter. Then have a look at some of those settings again. I'll just go through them one more time so you've got them. The CV to change for your volume is 266, and we recommend it up to somewhere about 160 if you want it a little louder. And CV843 for changing over the brakes, the whistles, etc. You can have a bit of fun with that. But one last time, I will say this is only scratching the surface of what you can do with our Black 5. There's a huge manual online. So check out that code that's come with your Black 5, or if you want to check it out otherwise, pop over to our website and have a quick nosy on there. If there's anything you're not sure about, give us a call, drop us a line, and we'll have a good natter with you. In the meantime, have a good bit of fun with your Black 5 and get her working a little bit for you.